the personal right of a refugee or a prisoner of war to return to their country of nationality under specific conditions laid down in various international instruments and human rights instruments, as well as in customary international law, which is the right to return, has a solid foundation in international law. Article 13.2 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR, states everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and to return to his country. According to Geneva Convention, the right to return applies to those who have been displaced voluntarily or involuntarily on account of the conflict, and not to non-nationals who have been lawfully expelled. The option of repatriation is bestowed upon the individual personally and not upon the detaining power. In the law of international armed conflict, repatriation also entails the obligation of the detaining power to release eligible persons, soldiers and civilians, and the duty of the country of origin to receive its own nationals at the end of hostilities. Even if treaty law does not contain a general rule of this point, it is today readily accepted that the repatriation of prisoners of war and civil detainees has been consented to implicitly by the interested parties. Repatriation as a term also applies to diplomatic envoys and international officials in times of international crisis, as well as expatriates and migrants. South African foreign policy here is being tested on consistency. Israel-Palestine in relation to Russia invasion in Ukraine, where South Africa has taken up a neutral position instead of condemning Russia's aggression. In the case of Israel-Palestine, South Africa is very clear that it condemns Israel and supports Palestine. So those are some of the inconsistencies in terms of foreign policy, which one would expect to be consistent. The reason to bilateral and multilateral cooperation is simply to enjoy privileges of being friends and being there for each other in times such as this. When South Africa expects Israel to prioritize the repatriation of South Africans safely back home in South Africa. There does not seem to be a strict obligation under international law to repatriate. Indeed, states have a relative discretion to decide upon the scope of their consular assistance, notwithstanding the obligation to protect all citizens in the line of conflict. So really, nothing at this stage can hold or compel Israel government to prioritize as per South African government request the repatriation of South Africans or any other nationals apart from concerned nations to take up the task and the risk of doing it themselves. They can ask for a safe corridor, but that is not guaranteed, as that would be behind enemy lines. It can be a good opportunity to shoot down an aircraft carrying some enemies of war during such a time. As opportunities as well, they take advantage of diversities and difficult times such as this in Israel. We call on the United Nations, we call on origin organizations and bodies to look into these matters. And as well, it can be one of the lessons that in times of war, in times of uncertainties, nations such as South Africa, it is very good to stay non-aligned and neutral in conflict, as you might need those countries that you cite. Thank you. My name is Dr. Charles Sinkala, international relations expert.